we're going back in time with Battlebots Season 1.0! Now this isn't the beginnings of Battlebots. Right after Robot Wars moved from the US to the UK, Battlebots was born in, I believe it was 1999, having a few events in the likes of Las Vegas. We're starting off, however, with Season 1.0, and the pilot episode, The Prelude to Battle! I'll tell you the truth here, while I've watched plenty of fights from Battlebots' classic Comedy Central days, I don't think I've ever sat down and actually watched through the full episodes, the full events before. It's probably happened before, like I've watched a lot of Robot Combat content, but I can't tell you I've ever had a time where I've just sat down and watched through the entire season of classic Battlebots. So this is exciting for me. I already knew some of what to expect, and I was ready for a great time. Was Prelude to Battle a great first step for this season? Or was it going to be a slight fumble to the Season 1.0? Let's find out in this review. I gotta say, I love the intro. It's got lots of fun clips of the robots crashing and smashing each other, with the logo just being formed by these futuristic laser beams. We're then met by Bill Dwyer and Sean Salisbury. They talk about how there are over 200 robots before giving us another montage of what we can expect, and right away, I was excited to see what was to come. They go on to talk about the Battlebots designed by Peter Lambertson, where they have the kill saws, raising spikes, lifting ramps called Hellraisers, and even the pulverizers. The kill saws are evidently far more likely to fling robots than they are nowadays, which is already exciting. I've seen what those can do, and I could not wait to see robots just getting absolutely flung across the arena. Though the pulverizers were shockingly tiny on these. I'm not surprised that they went for bigger, more impressive looking ones down the line. We then go on to seeing Bill Nye the Science Guy, though with all these jump cuts, it felt like I went into some sort of hysteria where Bill Nye was the voice inside my head. My goodness, what was going on with the editing there? They then go to Donna Derrico, who makes a penis joke, and I think they asked John Reed if he came from England. I'll admit, I think I'm still recovering from the Bill Nye bit, but Donna doesn't really do much here. We then get Randy and Jason Sklar, where they're about to talk about Mechadon, and... Okay, hold on. I need a moment. This has been all done within 4 minutes. 4 minutes, and we've been introduced to 7 different people, with Mark Sidrakian waiting to be introduced next. My eyebrows were raised when I saw how short this episode actually was, and even more so when I saw how few full fights there were going to be in this pilot. But holy cow! They really should have been given an hour for all of this, because it feels like they're trying to cram so much into an impossibly small space of time. We hadn't even gotten into the first fight, and I felt overwhelmed by just how quickly everything was being flashed in front of me. Like, good grief. Anyway, we get Mark Sidrakian talking about Mechadon, and to be fair, when he says he wanted something that would make you think Battlebots when seeing it, he absolutely achieved that in my opinion with Mechadon. This might also be helped due to the Axis robot he made to hold the giant nut, with those claws resembling Mechadon's legs. But Mechadon is definitely worthy of its own segment, just because it's so awesome to watch. They also do this bit where they interview random passers-by about Mechadon to get their thoughts, which, apart from a funny comment here or there, I really wasn't too interested in. Finally, they get back to the format, mentioning that it's a single elimination tournament, where if both robots are still kicking by the end, then it goes to the judges for damage, strategy, and aggression. We get 4 weight classes in this: lightweights, middleweights, heavyweights, and the now extinct super heavyweights. This is actually something I wish we could see return in Battlebots. Not so much the super heavyweights, I'm on about just different weight classes, because one of the biggest competitions to still be doing this format is Robo Games, and honestly, it shows that year on year there are still lots of people who could easily come over to Battlebots with lightweights and middleweights if they were to expand slightly, even if it was just for something like their Destructathon event. I feel it would also be nicer for newer teams who maybe don't have the budget or experience to build a heavyweight. And plus, I imagine it would be a lot easier on those creative teams who come in with like 50 different heavyweights if they could instead come out with a lightweight, a middleweight, and a heavyweight instead. Looking at you, Team Y Archie. They then go over some of the robots that they believe are notable, such as in the lightweights they bring up Mouser Mecha Catbot, Backlash, and Ziggo. Now, Mouser Mecha Catbot is a robot that started in Long Beach 1999's event, built by Thon Davis, who actually nowadays is a judge on the competition. And also another fun fact, Mouser Mecha Catbot has its own music video. It's weird to me that there are two notable music videos in robot combat history that I can think of, that being the Mouser Mecha Catbot music video and Android Love. There are obviously other notable robot combat songs, but just knowing that there are two notable music videos in robot combat that are absolutely just funny in their own rights, I don't know, I like that. You know, for how different Battlebots and Robot Wars is, they both have their bizarrely funny little music bits. Backlash, meanwhile, is a nasty looking lightweight from the Nightmare team, and I mean, you didn't need me to tell you that came from the Nightmare team, did you? Seeing the absolute size of that spinning disc, it truly is an exceptional looking robot. I think I'm always going to have a soft spot for robots that just put all of their oomph into just an oversized weapon, even if it might not always be the most competitive angle. You can't deny that it makes for a hell of a visual, doesn't it? Ziggo, meanwhile, might be the most well put together of these lightweights that they brought up. A beautiful looking full body shell spinner. Honestly, it looks awesome with these big chunky teeth, this well put together looking armor on the shell, with the only real oddity about it being just how large the self-righting pole is. It sticks out like a whole mile from the rest of the robot, it feels like. But there's not really much else to say. It's such a cool looking machine. And a fun fact about that actually, Ziggo actually still exists as a display piece. I honestly think that's so cool. I love to see robots that existed all those years ago, all those decades ago actually, that still are about in some form or another. Funnily enough, it looks like with a little bit of maintenance, you could actually probably get Ziggo working again, though I wouldn't recommend it. The notable middleweights that they bring up were Spin Orbiting Force, Pressure Drop, and Ankle Biter. Spin Orbiting Force, for those who don't know, is basically Tentomushi without the little ladybug thing, as it comes from the same team. That might not be entirely fair, but I mean, the similarities are readily apparent. Still, a pretty nice looking machine nonetheless, even if Tentomushi's legacy vastly outmeasures it. Pressure Drop, meanwhile, is a walker robot, and honestly, that alone is really cool to see, as you don't often get to see walker bots all too often. The hammer being in the position it is, I still find very odd, but maybe in action I'll find it makes a bit more sense. But the bot looks massive. I don't know if they got a weight bonus yet or not, but I think it's really cool looking. It, much like the modern day Chomp, had its axe on a 360-degree rotating turret, meaning that no matter what position you came at from to Pressure Drop, they could still bring down the pain upon you. And I do think that this is a legitimately cool way of doing a hammer robot. I actually really liked when Chomp tried it out, so yeah, I'm curious to see how it's all gonna go there. Notably, this team has Derek Young and would go on to create the likes of Complete Control, an iconic grabber and lifter robot that I feel pretty much shaped the way many grabber and lifters work to this day. And of course, Derek Young has been a judge for the competition since about World Championship 4, with a guest appearance in World Championship 3. Then there's Ankle Biter from Odin Robotics, and it's a little wedge with a... is that a saw coming out of it? Okay, I'm not sure entirely... I'll admit I'm not actually sure why this one's gone so hyped up, but sure. I know from looking at the future versions that it does look to be a little bit meaner as time goes on, but I don't know, I'm not feeling this initial version, I'll be honest. Then the notable heavyweights that they bring up are Tazbot, Vlad the Impaler, and Mauler. Tazbot, of course, being that 360-degree rotating turret lifter from Donald Hudson, who obviously would go on to create many iconic robots such as Dissector, Gearcrow, and Lockjaw. Not a crazy resume or anything. Just a builder that I assumed would be in the inaugural Hall of Fame class. Vlad the Impaler, meanwhile, is another iconic old-school robot from this time period. A cool, lifting robot that is legendary to the sport when you look at some of its older names. Just don't watch its appearances as Vlad the Impaler 2, especially in the likes of RoboGames 2017, because then it's just depressing to watch this old legend get absolutely decimated. And then, of course, Mauler, another iconic robot from the early days of robot combat, that flail spinner, just another fun-looking robot. The super heavyweights only get 2 mentions, with Duel and Grendel. Duel is definitely visually the one I'm the most interested in. It's a robot with a lifting CO2-powered ram that I think just looks kinda neat. Competitive? Not really, but the thing I found about the super heavyweights whenever I see them is they don't generally look like the most well-oiled machines unless you're looking at robots like the Judge and Ziggy. But if you look at, they're usually more just impressive monsters to look at, and by God does this one look like that. I guess I consider the super heavyweight class more like what would happen if the American competitions made house robots, where they're not going to be as competitive, but they sure are a spectacle to look at. Grendel, meanwhile, is a large spike hammer, which I don't know much about, to be quite honest with you. They have a lot of robots under their other entries list, though, on their wiki, so I am curious to see how this one will do. Anyway, enough talking about all of the robots that they think are going to be cool. Let's see the robots that are going to be cool this episode. Let's get into the first match. That one being Backlash versus Disposable Hero. Disposable Hero is billed as a forklift, but almost looks like a modern-day Wedgebot with forks. But Backlash is the real attraction here, with that gigantic spinner and Disposable Hero's armor, which... Did it have armor? It's so light, it looks like something that even the Beast team would say, oh man, you better protect your parts a bit more. The fight begins, and both robots had to go around the Hellraisers, as there is no waiting at all for all the weapons in the arena to come out. Once they clash though, you can see what happens when you have a poorly armoured robot against a robot that puts all its strategy into a mean weapon, with the first collision already tearing Disposable Hero apart, with additional hits just completely ripping into them before Disposable Hero is knocked out. It's a very one-sided encounter, but I can totally see why they picked it first, because Backlash looked just extremely impressive in this first bout. After the post-fight interviews that feel more like a speech from the Game Awards, they do cut to another quick montage, this time of the teams instead of just the robots. They bring up Hall of Famer Mark Satrakian, Team Slam, Team Ramtech, Team South Bay Robo Warriors, before going into a section about Lisa Winter. In the section we see the family's robots, Spin Orbiting Force, as well as the iconic Tentomushi. It's honestly so cool, and the Scorpios team I'm pretty sure showed that Lisa Winter still actually has most of the bits from Tento's history. Again, it's just cool to see all these iconic pieces of robot combat history being preserved. Anyway, it's on to the second fight of the episode, Tentomushi versus Salad. Salad? I don't know, it's got 2 L's, so I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Tentomushi's weapon is an interesting one, suffocating opponents with that ladybug with a hidden saw blade underneath to deal the actual damage. It's an interesting and fun robot in my opinion that I quite like. Salad meanwhile is a more traditional, reasonable looking robot with a lifting arm and oddly a part on the front bit of the arm which probably does more to block its lifting potential than anything, but that's just me. Now the fight begins, and again, Tentomushi has to race around the Hellraiser, while Salad actually waits for Tentomushi to make its way over. and immediately you see Salad playing the defensive with the lifting arm, holding the saw blade at bay. Once they break away though, Tento does come back in with a nice shot, though on the third clash, Salad actually gets around the back and starts pushing Tentomushi about, until Tentomushi grabs Salad again, as both robots clash back and forth, soon though falling victim to the kill saw, with Salad definitely getting the worst of it. As the fight continued, I wondered if Salad's lifting arm broke because I don't remember seeing it all too much past that point. It doesn't really matter though, as it reaches the end of the fight and to the judges, who give the fight to Tentomushi! Absolutely deserved in my opinion. It was far more aggressive, did obviously more damage. Salad wasn't bad at all, but I just don't think they had much of an answer for Tentomushi in this one. And with the post-match interviews out of the way, there's one more segment which is a guide, I guess, on building a robot in less than a minute. It's again so quick, so much being thrown at you at once that again I just don't know what to say. And with that, we're done, closing out on a shot of the giant nut. So with that, that's the Prelude to Battle, aka episode 0, aka the pilot episode of season 1.0. On one hand, I can see why people would say the fights on Battlebots are better than those on Robot Wars, as given it would have been between Series 2 and 3 of Robot Wars, this really was some pretty nice fights, all things being considered. Well, the first fight was Tentomushi vs Salad was a little bit more middling, but still wasn't bad by any means, and still would have been a decent competitor to what Robot Wars would have been giving out at the time. But, good lord, I feel like I went to a fancy restaurant only to be served a tiny gourmet meal. Sure, it was nice, but whew, I was desperate for more. And I'm sure some of you are pointing out to me about how it was only 30 minutes, how it was the pilot episode and they needed to establish stuff. I totally get it. But this actually had me worried. A pilot episode is meant to get me excited and wanting to watch more. The only reason I watched more was because I was worried that the rest of the season was going to be like this. Let me make this clear. Apart from a few bits here and there where they talked about the teams and the robots, a lot of this I really didn't like. You know, a lot of this I felt was needless fluff when I just wanted to see the fight. I wanted to see the bits about the teams and the robots, and I wanted to see them actually fight each other. And I don't know, it just didn't give me enough of what I wanted. Thankfully, from episode 1, after watching episode 1, I know that that's going to be not so much an issue as the season goes on. But yeah, I think given that this is a pilot episode that's meant to, you know, get me excited for what's to come, it fails on that because, well, I don't think it left the great first impression. There's some bits I like, but it could have been way better if it didn't try to cram so much into one episode. For the Comedy Central Battlebots fans out there, don't worry, my Season 1, Episode 1 review is going to be a lot more positive. I've already got the review notes down, I'm going to be recording it after I finish editing this one. So subscribe for that one. But yeah, as much as I liked what Prelude to Battle had, I don't think I can recommend watching from this episode. It feels a bit too cluttered for my opinion, and yeah, I just feel like there wasn't enough actual bots battling to recommend this episode of Battlebots. If you're going to watch the season, then little spoiler for the next review, watch episode 1. Much better, but again, we'll get into that next week. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review of Battlebots! It's definitely interesting to get to take a step back and review classic Battlebots, because, like I said, this is the first time I've ever gotten a chance to properly watch it all the way through, rather than little bits here and there. So to get a chance to properly formulate my opinion and think about it next to the reviews of the Robot Wars shows that were happening around about the same time, that's a great comparison for me, even, to see where the UK and US combat scenes were at. And if you'd be interested to see that too, then be sure to subscribe and check out my Robot Wars reviews as well, as I'm currently reviewing Series 2, which came out just before this season of Battlebots. Anyway, with that all being said, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on this video. Comment down below what you thought of this episode if you've watched it. It's about half an hour with adverts and 20 minutes without, so it's not going to be a hard watch, I'll give you that much. But yeah, let me know what you thought if you've seen this. Share this video around, please do. That'd be super appreciated. It really helps out more than you know. You know, I saw a video that got shared on my channel, and let me tell you, like, it was a video that would normally get no views. Suddenly, it got like a bunch more. Like, you don't understand. Everything you do, no matter how small you think it is, helps me out immeasurably. Regardless, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye, guys!